Fascinating stuff indeed. And up next, we are going to be continuing our conversation about the adoption of blockchain, turning now to how we can accelerate adoption in enterprise. And our guest speakers are set to discuss things like the key product drivers that are transforming industries. And if you want to hear and listen out for the secrets to harnessing blockchain's full potential, make sure you stick with us throughout this session. So I'd like to welcome our panelists to the stage. We have Alex Appledorn from the Cardano Foundation, Dr. Bernhard Kronfellner from the Boston Consulting Group, John Woodward from Wolfram Blockchain Labs, Sunny Liu from VeChain, Dan Dane from Checkpoint, and of course their moderator, May Ben Kadra of CNBC Arabia. I'm sure you'd like to join me in a round of applause to welcome them onto the stage.
Where do I go?
Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us this lovely morning. My name is May Ben Kadra. I'm a senior business anchor at CNBC, and it's really a pleasure to be here with you today. I hope everybody is okay. So you started the day with a very interesting session. Okay, guys? You're good. Okay. If my speakers are good and you're good, so we're good. So you started the discussion today. Hello?
Hello? Hello?
Okay. So you started the discussion today with a very interesting topic, and it's mainly about UAE adoption to blockchain technologies. Now we're going to move it a little bit further. We're going to talk more about how enterprises in the region are adopting blockchain technologies and what are the opportunities and what are the challenges that companies in the region and even globally are facing. What lessons can we learn from these challenges? We have the experts here today, and I'm going to start with you, Alex, as a representative of the Cardano Foundation. And I want you to tell us first. Hello. So
welcome.
We've got as well Sunny Liu and Dr. Bernard joining us. So we have our full panel right now. So let me start with you, Alex. And if you can tell us and tell our audience today about the most compelling uses for blockchain technologies for different enterprises in different sectors, and why does it matter?
That's a great question. I think there's a lot of use cases that blockchain can solve for, and I think maybe one of the more interesting use cases is probably something around robustness and availability. So when you think about like traditional systems and how they are designed, right? Like they typically design the systems around throughput, lead time, lag time, operational overhead, that kind of thing, and what is typically not considered in those systems is like the robustness of the system, how well it sort of like deals with externalities. And I think when you look at the design of blockchains, and then maybe specifically Cardano, like they're specifically designed around robustness, around availability, around sort of making sure that you can survive things that happen outside of the system. So if we look at the global supply chain, for instance, right? Like we all see what happened during the COVID period, right? Like there's a lot of impact that was had on the global supply chain, and I think that when we insert like a blockchain system like that just incorporates robustness and availability in these types of systems, like they'll both have like synergistic increases. So I do think that blockchain has like a really great use case in supply chain and other purposes.
And we've learned this lesson the hard way with what happened with COVID, and to what extent is it important to have supply chain management, and now companies are relying more and more on technology with regards to that. Dr. Bernard, from your expertise and long-standing experience in consulting, can you tell us the key factors that enterprises are looking at when considering using blockchain technologies in different industries?
Yeah. So
they are looking for new innovation all the time. Yeah? It should not be too complicated. It should not be that they are not in love with blockchain, as many of us are here in the conference. It should just work. It should just bring additional use cases. It should solve problems. And that's more or less it. It's not like that they are in love with blockchain like all of us. They're, you know, it should solve the problems, and that's it. Yeah? Super easy answer.
So security is a major issue for any technology, and especially, you know, in this era, we're having it with governments, with companies, with the public and private sector as well. So Dan, can you tell us a little bit about to what extent is having a secure network important when it comes to motivating enterprises to adopt blockchain technologies from your, of course, experience with Checkpoint?
Sure. Cybersecurity is one of the leading considerations when enterprises need to decide whether to deploy on a blockchain and also on which blockchain to deploy on. So I think Cardano is doing a very good job in terms of design for security. And the part where we fit in and add another component is with real-time security, and also with, I think, a very reputable third party that is looking at the network at real time and gives the level of comfort to Web2 traditional enterprises that recognize the name and know the security value, the level of comfort that allows them to actually get into blockchain and get into the right network to make the right choices.
So coming back to the importance of technology for supply chain management and the lessons globally we have learned, whether governments or companies as well. Sunny, to what extent do you think that blockchain technology offers a lot of solutions to logistics and to supply chain management? And what are the key components in this area that we must look at when we consider how blockchain can actually help?
Yeah. Firstly, sorry guys, I was late for the technical glitch, but I guess they make sure I holding the Cardano Foundation here with a good image. By the way, Cardano communities rocks. I really like you guys. The question is actually very straightforward. To most of the enterprise, I think supply chain acts as the first step to onboard, the blockchain applications. We started, VChain started like a few years ago, 7 years ago, with a different type of enterprise on board the supply chain applications. And to us, I would call it like a Trojan horse. That's a way you kind of lure the enterprise, okay, try something, make incremental innovation, just replace the normal database by the blockchain, then you can open up for more public, transparent logs and also more open collaboration with a different type of the players. But we shouldn't sit just be satisfied with whatever we have achieved, for the not only for VChain but for the entire crypto space. I would say more important, especially to supply chain, is when we have that kind of data, like coming from the supply chain, coming from the different business activities already move on the blockchain, what kind of the value we can get or we can create because of the data, no more just in database, but actually in the blockchain, right? It's immutable, it's public, it's collaborative. So what kind of data for that? Actually, working with the BCG together, we kind of figure out the direction is also based on the experiences we achieved in the last few years. We believe sustainability value is actually coming from, it's the low-hanging fruits, let's say, for any kind of supply chain cases or use case as the next level. So that's what we have been working on.
So it's all about value creation, but that comes with many challenges, right, John?
Of course. I would say, but this year is going to be a different, honestly, because firstly, I believe, that's why I call it the Trojan horse for the first version or the original version of the supply chain use case with blockchain, because there is a limited utility of the token. But I believe in the future, token going to play a very important role in any kind of applications, even with enterprises, right? But before, due to the lack of regulations, or let's say all of the different type of bad events, bad incidents happening in the crypto side, to normal people, to enterprise, they just feel like, oh, crypto equals evil,
Yes.
that's not cool. But this year is going to be different. After the Bitcoin ETF approved, and Europe is launching the
Yeah,
MiCA.
the sentiment drastically changed. So
Exactly.
one of the issues, John, is regulations. But what are the other challenges that we have to be aware of?
So for me, I kind of think about when it comes to enterprise and blockchain, they're quite different. And that's worth doing some comparison on. So when you think about enterprise, like your real goal is about monopoly profits, right? Which is, I think Peter Thiel actually said it best in that like competition is for losers. I love that. So if you have a chance on YouTube to kind of look at his talks about going from like 0 to 1, you'll see that often enterprise will kind of mask what they're doing once they do achieve monopoly and say, oh no, we have a lot of competition. And so that's very different from blockchain and the ethos of blockchain, which is about largely community. And within the different communities and community projects, it's about governance and trying to figure out how to make decisions in many ways, like we see with Cardano moving to intersect. So it's kind of like there are all of these things, and when you kind of do that broad comparison, they're very different kind of overall objectives. And we have to be very careful in blockchain and blockchain communities not to project things that are interesting and useful and that we want to do as a community onto enterprise, because again, they're very different. So when you look at that, you have to go to overall strategy, and like we can look just across the board, and it's very important to, on a meta kind of basis, back up and think about what strategy are we actually trying to do in enterprise, and that largely centers on, for each specific enterprise, the challenges that they face, not only coming from like the challenges of the enterprise in particular, but also what they're trying to do in terms of their customers, in terms of their communities, everything else. And those challenges are going to be very different than what blockchain communities face. So again, like we can't project what would be our solutions onto enterprise. They need to come organically from like the enterprise challenges, and then look again at the title when we're thinking about like those key drivers, looking at the ecosystem of the enterprise, the customers in the enterprise. In that enterprise, also look at like what are their unique strengths, what are their competitive advantages, and build on top of that a unique strategy, and then say, hey, there are some aspects of specific blockchains like Cardano that we can now look at enabling, solving, and amplifying, like solving the challenges and amplifying the unique strategic differences of a particular enterprise. So that's kind of how I would look at it.
So I would like to ask you, Dr. Bernard, about that challenges might be different for enterprises than for governments, maybe. Do you think that this stands out, that the challenges for adopting blockchain technologies might differ between governments and the private sector?
Well, definitely, of course. I mean, as a private sector, you have other topics to solve than for government. I mean, for government, it's more to serve your people in the country, to come up with something that is, well, safe and secure. You cannot alter it. Whereas for customers or for companies, I mean, what matters to them is revenue. So if you have complete different set of target function, and of KPIs you need to serve, in principle. And this holds also true for the technology that they might use. And nevertheless, for both sides, be it governments or be it companies, I see the future in a way that we will all use tokens. We are not all falling in love with tokens, and a lot of people will have tokens and have a wallet, and they don't even know that they're using those kind of technology. We'll just go to, I don't know, a sport event. We have a ticket. Actually, this ticket is a token in our wallet. We don't care. Yeah? We go there, and that's it. Or we will do some collect other points, yeah, like we perform a sustainable action, then we get a point for this. Yeah, Or we going to government, we might have our driving license with self-sovereign identity on chain. You cannot alter this, it's there. And when police stops us, we'll show actually a token. So all those things are happening, and all the things will enter our daily life without people knowing that they are actually
using it.
Using it and actually in crypto, so to say.
Yeah, I'm not a technology kind of person. I find it really difficult with all this technology advancement and all the techniques that we hear about every single day, but it seems like it's creeping into my life and our life without even us knowing. We're just using it every day, just like you were saying. So Alex, let me ask you, how do you deal at Cardano Foundation with regards to the challenges that you face with regards to blockchain technologies? I mean, what kind of challenges do you face?
Ooh, I mean, there's a variety of problems that the blockchain space faces. I think one of them is like the proven use cases around how do we generate revenue, how do we optimize for operations, how do we make things more seamless. I do think that when we look at sort of the wider public, perhaps is a good thing to say. Like a lot of people are becoming more and more aware of the fact that their data is being used in a variety of places. Like they don't necessarily have like the control of their funds and their like their identity anymore. And that has like a lot of impact in the public trust. And I think that the public is becoming more and more knowledgeable about these things because it becomes more and more part of the public conversation. I do think that as much problems as there are, I do think that like enterprises and like institutions are seeing the impact that this knowledge in the population has right now, and they are actually looking at ways that they can essentially decentralize, that they can reduce sort of like their personal data footprint, and they are exploring what blockchain can do for them and like how that can enhance their collaboration while also maintaining sort of the privacy. So yeah, absolutely.
You mentioned two keywords here, privacy and collaboration. And because we have Dan with us today, and because I'm someone who likes to have all the news shared on my panels, so what kind of collaboration are we seeing with regards to Checkpoint with any companies here today? So Dan, break the news for us.
Okay. So first of all, I resonate a lot with what Sunny said. I really like the Cardano community. I think it's an amazing community. I'd like to thank the Cardano Foundation for onboarding us. I've been surprised at how friendly and easy it is to get onboarded to Cardano. A lot of friendly faces, a lot of parties that would like to cooperate. So we've worked with many stakeholders in the ecosystem already. I'd like to mention Imargo. I'd like to mention Yoram, who brought us in to Cardano originally from Endamio. I'd like to mention, the DeFi ecosystem, players like Geo Wallet, Pi from Sandy, so many ecosystem players. I can't really see the crowd from the lights. I'd like to, point out at more familiar faces, but really it's been a great adventure so far with Cardano, and I think that's the kind of environment that actually also helps enterprises get onboarded, because I think one of the blockers that is aligned with security concerns is I think enterprises are having a difficult time to make this leap because they don't know what they don't know. And when you have so many familiar faces in the ecosystem, everybody is aligned toward adoption, it makes it much easier through conversation to get over these barriers.
So that's interesting. So Alex, I want to go back to you and talking about security issues. So to what extent do you have multiple collaborations with other companies that handle the security aspect of blockchain technology?
So I think one of the interesting things about maybe blockchain, but also specifically Cardano, is sort of like the design principles of it, right? Like the formally verified, provably secure, etc. And like because a lot of what happened on Cardano is peer reviewed and like well regarded and well cited throughout the world. It does bring a lot of sort of reputation with it, and like we have things to point at where we can go like, this is sort of like how secure Cardano is. This is sort of like like we have deterministic transaction execution. We have predictable cost models. Like all of these things, like are provably secure, and a lot of people take that with them in their consideration for adopting Cardano. In their enterprises, and like probably the hardest part is obviously getting your foot in the door.
Of course.
But as soon as you sort of like have your foot in the door, you can prove you can show all the research material and go, look, this is everything that we've done. Here are also like a couple of business cases that we set up with various parties around the world, and this is the success that we can show. And that brings a lot of confidence and a lot of comfort when we start having these conversations. And yeah, like the results are there.
So Sunny, back to you. And when we talk about what kind of challenges enterprises face, transaction speed, scalability are key issues. So how do you at VeChain deal with these kind of challenges with enterprises?
Well, the first challenge I mentioned about, actually John just answered that, is actually about the regulation, right? But again, after this year, I think the regulation has so much progress, whatever in Europe, and everyone in US, I guess, is waiting for the election, then come up with clarity in terms of regulation environment to crypto. But I think it's just a matter of the time. We're going to get there. But other than that, I think...
What are you waiting to see when it comes to regulations in the blockchain space?
You mean US? Firstly, who's going to be the president?
Yeah,
right?
how can that impact regulations, in what sense?
I would say the two candidates has different views or different priorities. Trump is more favorable to crypto. So I guess if Trump won, and then he's going to push for the regulation side to come more friendly to the crypto side. His own family actually has couple of crypto projects launched, the finance tokens, NFT plays, whatever by the sounds. So if Trump won, then definitely gonna speed up, make it more regulated. Kamala Harris, I don't know. Even it's just a matter of the time, but they might not be aggressive as Trump was. So, but still, I would say regulation is no more, it's just a matter of the time. It's no more the challenge per se. The bigger challenge for enterprise adoption, I would say, is still about the tools, about the infrastructures. I'll give you an example. Let's say when we think about the mass adoption, especially when we work with different enterprise, try to adopt the normal people to be the crypto user or to be the blockchain application user, the social login becomes very important as a first step. Right? They don't want to install the wallet. They don't want to memorize the memory phrase or private keys. It's a hassle for normal people. But when we think about the social login, even now there are a couple of options in the market, but still people start to worry about, okay, what about the asset security? Is your custodian is focused on that? But when we think about the big custodian players, whatever Coinbase or Fireblocks, they're more focused on the assets volume, not for the social login for the normal people. They may not have millions of dollars assets in the wallet, but they may have just a few bucks, few dollars, right? So this type of, let's say, tools or solutions, I think it's going to be the key infrastructure challenge to enterprise adoptions. Last but not least, is still about the application itself. You know, I think with viable, accessible application or use cases, then technology is not really a problem. It's just a matter of the time to onboard more users.
So, Dr. Bernard, let me ask you, from your perspective, to what extent do you think that regulation might be important not only in the sense of what kind of regulations are we going to see, but from the sense that it will provide a positive sentiment for crypto, for the crypto space, and that will actually even provide more motive for enterprises and for governments to push ahead with adopting blockchain technologies? I mean, do you see that the two must go hand in hand when it comes to adoption, what's happening in the crypto space and how that reflects on blockchain adoption?
Yeah, but totally. I mean, regulation is needed, especially for companies to jump into the topic. No company will touch a topic that is in the gray area. Be it, for instance, a bank would never go into DeFi as long as DeFi is not regulated in the particular space and country we are talking about. Nevertheless, for instance, banks, they're building their DeFi platform behind the curtains to be ready exactly for the regulation is ready now. And what Sonny just said totally resonates, that nevertheless, technology will find its way and regulation follows later then. So when there is a certain problem that can be solved with a new type of technology, then the regulator will pick this up, will see this in the gray area or in certain industries that this is really happening and functioning, and it also brings additional value to society and to all of us. Then it's only a question of time until the regulation follows in order to have it also in rules and the customer protection and everything which is needed then, of course. But it only follows as soon as they see a certain impact. And then when, and this is a normal procedure, like you start from a community like us here, Web3 community, we play a little bit around here, we do this already for a couple of years or a decade maybe. There are a lot of use cases that are meaningful. Now regulation follows. Europe maybe earlier than US. After the election, we will also see, hopefully in the US, that there will be movement no matter which party wins. This is my view. So first the communities, the Web3 communities, then the regulators, and then in the meantime, the big companies are already building their solutions behind the curtains, and then the big companies are following. And again, many things are already allowed in crypto, and we see that banks jumped on the topic already, or that other industries are jumping on the topic already. Yeah? And those things that are not allowed yet will follow as soon as there's a regulation around.
So let me ask you, John, what would you like to see in terms of regulations? In the sense of, I mean, looking at what happened since the start of the year, we've got the Bitcoin spot ETFs, then we've got the Ether spot ETF, and we've had really positive sentiment. We have more institutional investors adopting more crypto assets. What would you like? What do you think is needed from a regulator globally, not only in the US?
I feel like that's quite a loaded question because anyway, for me, as I've gotten into crypto and like going back to the cypherpunks and like looking at things and thinking about my own political leanings, which I won't get into. But I feel like more like a pirate in a way. And so I feel like when people talk about being regulated, it's like, well, maybe, but you're not going to get necessarily what you want. And like, there's two great tragedies in life. I'm sure like people have heard this. Not getting what you want and getting what you want. Exactly. So like when I hear people talk about regulation, I think about it from that perspective, that it's like anytime you ask governments to do stuff, like you don't know what kind of chain reaction you're going to put into place. And so that's what I would be quite careful about, especially when you're going up against very mature industries that are very used to being regulated, like banking, insurance, et cetera. that have lots of existing structures, lots of existing alumni that work within those governmental institutions, private institutions, philanthropic organizations. So when I look at it, I kind of look at it from that perspective, that like you may have your ideal case, but you have to be, again, very careful based on how we've seen things progress over time.
So Alex, I would like to hear your thoughts on this.
I have lots of thoughts on this. I think if there's a community behind it, I think actually the summation, like technology will find a way in the same way that like life will find a way. I think that a lot of people see the benefits of blockchain, and they see a lot of value that is being created in the blockchain space. And you know, like at some point, there's going to be a point where we say, well, you know, like the obvious solution to this one is blockchain, and you know, like there won't never be a regulation that says you can't do blockchain. There might be some things around around the assets, but there will never be a regulation that says you can't do blockchain. And with that, there will be application areas for blockchain. It will sort of like creep into day-to-day life. It will go into enterprises, and at some point in time, people, it will be the first thought that they will have from an adoption perspective, right? It will not be the last thought. So yeah, I would definitely say that I guess no matter what happens, yeah, technology will find a way.
So I would like to hear your final thoughts on 10 years from today. Where do you think blockchain technology will be, and what would it mean for our personal lives? I don't want to only talk about enterprises. So I would like to start with you, Dan. 10 years from today, how would blockchain look like, and how would it impact our lives? Just open your imagination.
Okay, I will. I'll give you somewhat of an optimistic view.
Yes, please. We're still at the start of the day.
I would say everywhere. For me, when I look at blockchain technology by large, what it reminds me of is the cloud revolution. I feel like the blockchain technology has a lot of potential. Technically, the inherent traits of systems that leverage blockchain are pretty amazing. And I believe it would be everywhere. I feel like it's more of a back-end technology. So people may not realize they're using it day to day. I think there'll be a level of abstraction, just like with cloud technology. But I would say everywhere, and specifically I would say in enterprise and in the financial sector.
Sunny?
Well, I agree with Dan. Blockchain is going to like the internet. So like, you know, today we use internet every day, every minute, right? You spend 8 hours, 10 hours a day in your phone. You use internet everywhere. But you don't understand what is a TCP/IP, what is the SMTP behind that. So the same thing for blockchain. I believe in the next 10 years, the main theme of the crypto, of the blockchain is going to be application. I believe application is going to be the king of the entire industry. Whoever come up with viable, valuable application could adopt, the normal user will sit to the attention center. Yeah, that's what I believe.
Okay, John?
So I generally reject these questions as being an aforementioned kind of pirate in a way, just because we don't know what's going to happen in the future. And I think one of the things in particular with emerging technologies and what we've seen with like things on a global scale, if we went back to like 2018 or 2019 in Miami when there was a Cardano event, I don't think anyone would have predicted a global pandemic as
that's true.
a thing. And then that drove technology in a certain direction. So I'd say these questions are really difficult in the future because we know these sort of black swan events will happen either across the world or with technology in particular. But it's incredibly hard to predict them. Again, like December 2022 with ChatGPT and like AI becoming increasingly popular and interesting. It's very difficult on either side to kind of predict them. but when I go back and try to think about like what will potentially happen, I think one of the things we didn't talk a lot about today, but I would introduce is thinking about strategy in the enterprise, and that enterprises will get better overall in terms of strategy, along with blockchain communities in general, of like, hey, we have all these challenges that we'll have to go through. We have these key drivers potentially of adoption, talking about like the competitive forces, different things that are going on in general, identifying those to then go through and think about like, here are actual objectives and what we're going to focus on, and coming up with really unique novel solutions, which I think Sunny talked about, people coming in with applications and other things. So I would look at it way more from that perspective, that generally we're not going to know what's going to happen. Lots of things from here to till 10 years are going to affect things in different ways. But we can come back and look at what we can do from a strategy perspective to be aware and have greater insight into, having identified those challenges, be able to look at and add those things that come out from kind of left field in many ways, and adapt our strategy to meet those challenges.
So Dr. Bernard, for you, I would like to tweak the question a little bit. What advice would you give companies and enterprises looking to adopt blockchain technologies from your long experience in this area?
Yeah. So now I need to think of a new answer.
No, and you can answer the first one, definitely. I would love to see where you see things moving on.
So look, well, what I'm telling companies is always, blockchain is not evil or bad or something. It's just a new form of storage. And you have your USB drive, you have your hard drive, you have your cloud, and you have your blockchain. So something new is joining the family. There are some use cases where you still think maybe a USB drive is the best solution, or my hard drive is the best solution, and some solutions are best on blockchain. So it's nothing magical, it's nothing about speculation, it's just a new form of storage, period. And no one should be afraid of this. So, like on cloud service, for instance, it doesn't matter that it's a cloud, it matters what's on the cloud. It matters the programs that are running there, and so on and so on. So same holds true for blockchain. It's more about the applications, the solutions that we put on blockchain, and where we build communities around it. I mean, look at, I don't know, Instagram or other big brands or ecosystem. No one cares where the data are, right? I mean,
yes.
I don't even know where my Instagram data are, but everyone is using it. Everyone loves it, most of us. That matters. It doesn't matter whether it's a blockchain, a cloud, or whatever. Some use cases are good on a cloud, other use cases are good on a blockchain. So coming back to your question, what we advise companies is to build apps that are meaningful. For some of those apps, blockchain are the right answers. We help them to make them big, to really make it a success. And to become a success, sometimes you also need maybe a token, where sometimes it's good to have regulation around this, and so on and so on. But it's not per se that the blockchain is something you should be aware of. Yeah, and the spirit of blockchain is, again, not that companies would love it. I mean, again, here at Cardano, we love our ecosystem. We love the ecosystem of VeChain. We love, we love those stuff, right? And that's why we're here. But we are just 0.01% of the population. And the others, for them, it just needs to work. And we love more Instagram than the technology behind this. So it holds true for blockchain.
Yeah, and we understand Instagram and how to use Instagram better than we understand the technology behind it. So maybe that will apply to blockchain as well. Alex, would love to hear your thoughts about where we're going to be 10 years from today.
10 years from now, I mean, if we think about what we know from 10 years back and where we are right now, so like, projecting that 10 years into the future, I think, I mean, the fundamental design principles of blockchain is this concept of roots of trust, decentralization, trustless systems, And I think with the introduction of like large language models, with like the mining of data that is happening all around the world, I think you know, like with these deep fakes that are happening, with self-sovereign identities, with like all these things that are essentially emerging. Yeah, I think blockchain will play the biggest role there. But that's not to say that that's the only application area. I mean, the roots of trust and like using that as a design principle, we can look at you know, like track and trace systems, or you know, like highly customized components. We can look at counterfeiting, like everything that requires you to essentially trust the counterparty. Using a blockchain essentially allows you to essentially trust well, it's not an intermediary, obviously, but trust a second system to prove essentially the origin of the thing that you're observing, be that a video, be that pharmaceuticals, be that, you know, components in a nuclear power plant, doesn't matter.
So, yes, please, go ahead.
Sorry, I need to change my answer just a little bit. Because I really think about this. Okay, so one thing is that no one has mentioned Satoshi Nakamoto, and I think that deserves a mention. When you're talking about regulation, you're talking about 10 years, and like think about like what was born into like Occupy Wall Street and everything else. In terms of what Dr. Bernard was saying in terms of blockchain not being scary, I had like, that's where I was like, no, it actually is scary, or it should be kind of scary. Because that's what Nakamoto was trying to do, is like basically knock over the incumbent financial system with Bitcoin. So it's kind of like, I think that deserves a mention. So it's not to attack you, but just to say that like, wait a minute, we can go this entire panel and not mention, you know, Nakamoto. So I think I was like, oh wow, got to say that. So I won't go any further. I could say a lot, but.
Okay. Please, doctor.
I need to jump in here as well. So, no, it's not scary, you're right. But
I mean, it is scary. It can be scary.
It can, exactly. So I still stick to my sentence. It's not scary, and all new technology might bring some revolutions. Not directly tomorrow, but over time. I always refer to the shared economy. I mean, some of us may know still this term. It was like 15 years back. Everyone was like, okay, the shared economy is the new thing. Nothing happened, and then but then gradually, yeah, and no one was talking about shared economy then anymore. Airbnb came up, and Uber came up years later then. And I think it's the same will happen for this technology here now with blockchain. That at the beginning everyone's like, yeah, blockchain, new thing and so on. Is it scary? Is it not scary? Yes, there might be a different monetary system. I mean, regulators are jumping with CBDC on the topic as well in order to have a counter argument to, you know, Bitcoin and so on. But I think we are at the same point like back in the days of shared economy. Everyone was talking about this, like with us now. And then later on, it just became normal that those new applications emerge and enter our life, be it in the financial system. And yes, this is a threat maybe to the monetary system, I'm with you, but also to other parts where we just use those apps, like we use Uber or Airbnb now.
Yeah, so I would say, sorry, I'm going to like, so I would say, yeah, I mean, the sharing economy became a thing, and then it like had some sort of hype cycle or whatever people like to call it there. But Airbnb, Uber, and then a bunch of clones, the Uber for whatever came out, and then it gradually took time. And I would say, like, one, that's kind of the dual-sided nature of regulation, in that it calcified the unique competitors that had taken advantage of a moment in time. It kind of solidified them as the winners in a way. That's what you like. That's why I would say there's like a dual-sided nature to a regulatory environment to be somewhat concerned about. The thing that I would say as well is that if you go back to like 2019, which almost never gets mentioned and should be mentioned all the time, is that Facebook came out with Libra and then was brutally just attacked by global regulators that basically were like, no, you can't do this.
Yeah, Sunny would like to add something.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to use a concrete example to, I agree with all of you guys. I don't want to get into the fight. I just want to use a concrete example. Just think about 10 years ago, there was no EV, or maybe EV just get started. People call Elon Musk crazy. You're never going to run a car with 500 miles with just batteries, right? But today, EVs becomes the most popular selection, not only in US, but also even in China. I think it just passed like 51% of the new cars launched to the roads. That also 10 years ago, when we think about a crypto, when we think about a blockchain, it's
when
only
we thought about
Bitcoin.
AI.
Or AI, right? Only Bitcoin. But today, we just launched a very new application. It's combined with two. If you are the Tesla driver, you go to the evearn.io, and you can log in your Tesla accounts into these D apps. Every time you charge your car, you get the crypto rewards. That's it. Very simple.
Yes.
So think about the 10 years later, you could be multiple different decentralized applications or crypto applications. You don't even know that.
Yeah.
Right? But you use on your daily basis. So think about it 10 years ago, think about now, and think about it in the next 10 years. I think just so much possibility.
And I think the technology is accelerating even actually faster than, we don't have to wait a decade. 5 years from today, we're going to have something different. So it's really an insightful and amazingly interesting panel. Thank you so much for joining us today. And please stay tuned because we have more panels to come today. And I hope you have a great day with us today. Thank you.